All right, so I think we're called to order then. For your minutes, Bonnie, it is 7:03 p.m. Okay. For taking tabs on who is in attendance at the meeting, there's only one person attending with me here at the library, and that's Jillian. So
Jillian.
Hi.
I am otherwise on my own. So,
Got it.
okay. And then looking towards the next item on the agenda, that is our additions. Is there anything that anyone would like to have added to the agenda this evening? Not hearing anything, that takes us to comments from the public. Would any of our members of the public like to say anything or address the board? Martha, no? Okay. Not hearing anything, that will take us on to the minutes of the June 15th, 2021 meeting, which was the last time that the library board met. So I'm going to share over to the packet here so that I can scroll down and for the following items that we are going to be discussing, the minutes and then the financial reports, that we can have those up on the screen for everybody. Are those big enough, or should I increase the font size, Kathy?
It's always helpful to if you can increase.
Janie's giving me a thumbs up.
Yeah, thank
A
you.
little bit better. Okay. So minutes for the June 15th board meeting. If there are no questions, discussion, or comment, I would look for a motion to approve.
I so move.
The only,
Nicely done,
my
Bonnie.
surname is misspelled, but I don't know if that's of consequence.
Whoops.
What is the correct spelling, Matt?
Zaute.
I see.
No, I read through these and I completely missed that. Okay, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay. So motion to approve as amended.
I so move.
I second.
That was
All right,
Kathy who moved and Janie who second.
I believe I seconded.
Yeah.
Vice
I
versa.
Got it. Thank you.
Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, minutes are approved, and that will take us up to the financial reports. Ever exciting financial reports. And first item that I have to highlight for you, we're going to be going through financial reports, of course, for 2 months since these were not approved. There was no meeting in July, so there was no approval. So we have for June and July tonight for approval. So starting with the ones in June, first item to highlight is this number here, which is $269,304. That is was received in property tax revenue. That is a nice big chunk, and we'll see another nice big chunk that we received in July here in a moment when we get to that.
Eric, could you speak up, please?
Yeah, hang on. Jillian, could you social distance a little further to the other end of the table here? Since I'm gonna take off my mask. That better?
Yes, much. Thank you.
Kind of, it's nice, thick, safe fabric, but it kind of muffles the voice. The other number I want to highlight here is the 11,004. That is property tax, not property tax, passport revenue that we had received in July, which is a nice big number, even compared to some of the very busy months that we've been having with property tax passport revenue recently. Service continues to be very well received as well, which is fantastic. I had a family in that I had not seen in the library before, and I helped them with passports yesterday. And to a passing acquaintance, who was also coming in for a passport appointment, the mom declared that this was the best thing that had ever happened. So it's like, that's a pretty broad statement, but glad that it's well received. So not too many other things I'm going to draw attention here specifically in the financial report. Computer services, the 3560, that is the quarterly payment for maintenance to CVI. And otherwise fairly standard here, and I will head on down to the bottom line, where I can show you that at the end of June, we were 19.31% of the budget used. So that's the funds that we had budgeted to receive and spend, 19.31% of that expended, which is pretty well right where we want to be. We'll have an updated number here for you as we scroll down to the July reports, where I can also show you, I'm happy to show you that 180,758 was received in property tax revenue. Not quite as spectacular a month for passport fees, but still pretty good. We've been incredibly busy, and we are, as noted in the director's report, well ahead of where we were the last time we went through a full normal year with passport service. So other than that, the main thing that I would draw attention to here in the July reports is, again, the bottom line. So I'm scrolling down to that. And you can see that here as 27.11% of the budget has been expended. So right now where we're at the end of July, the most recent month that we completed, is that we are a quarter of the way through the fiscal year, which would be, of course, 25%. But in terms of looking at our budget, it's always important to keep in mind that we have a lot of invoices, particularly annual invoices, that are loaded towards the front end of the fiscal year. So we spend a lot in May, and then we're very purposefully stingy and careful with spending any money on anything at all in April. So really looking at July, I would look for us to be between 26 and 28%. So this is solid. This is where we want to be. So I would add to the financial reports here a piece of information that I'd sent out as well to the Finance Committee, which is that I had received as well the initial information, initial preliminary reserve audit document. Boy, I just can't talk right tonight. So I have the preliminary draft of the audit document, and that shows that we added at the end of the last fiscal year $46,047 to the general reserve, which is a nice solid number that we were able to add. So given the challenges of the year, nice to have a solid financial ending to that.
Hey, Eric, can you also speak to the total revenues line? So year to date, July.
Absolutely.
Yep. Just
This one right here.
right above the expenditures. Yep. So
48.63.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that typical that one quarter in we would have collected about 50% of all revenues expected?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the balance here, right now we've collected $520,000 versus the 465,000 we had collected at this point last year, which granted was an atypical year and things were a bit strung out, but it does show that we're very much on course. The way that the property taxes will generally arrive is that there's two big dumps of the money that's been collected at the beginning of the summer in May and June, and then again at the end of the summer. And then there will be another big deposit that will be made later in the fall. And then one last, usually much smaller deposit that will be made in January, December. Sometimes there's a few deposits that follow on in the last months, but usually by the end of December, we're within a few percentage points as far as where we're going to be in terms of the property tax revenue. And that is still the revenue that pretty much drives everything else. It's still, depending on the year, 95 to 96% of the total revenue that we bring in.
Thank you for that.
No problem. It was a good question. Because it does arrive irregularly. It's not an every month, spaced out. Any other questions?
I had one question, Eric, and this is a smaller observation, but are the non-resident fees, is that a good comp? 2021 versus 2020? Because they seem so much higher, like 2.5 times. And I was wondering if that's reflective of just a bad comp in 2020, or if we're seeing more fee revenue from folks outside of Lake Bluff.
Oh, the non-resident fees are for folks who live in unincorporated Lake Bluff.
Like Knollwood and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Knollwood, Shore Acres, and other little enclaves around the community. This year is much more typical.
Okay.
We had some families that usually purchase cards that opted not to. I think probably some families that were under additional economic worries or strain.
Mm-hmm.
So it is nice to see that number getting back to where I think really it ought to be. So short answer, 2020 was it was a bad year for non-resident fees.
Got it. Thank you.
Eric, you can maybe go a little further with that explanation when we get to the card agreements later in the meeting. That sort of balances all that out.
Sounds good. If there aren't any additional questions, I would look for a motion to approve the June and July financial reports. We can approve them with one motion as long as we're certain that we include in the motion a reference to both of them.
I will move that both June and July of 2021 financial reports be accepted as given.
I'll second.
All right, and for finances, it is a roll call vote. Trustee Graziano.
She's absent.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were there.
I'm approved.
Eric, sorry. Do I record the roll call vote?
You do not need to.
Okay, thank you.
That's my recollection on the fly as far as how we've done that. Janie, you've been.
The only time I think is when there's something controversial and then we want to know who votes yay and who votes nay. But I would say by far and away, 95% of the motions that we put forth are accepted unanimously.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we get any dissenters tonight on the financials. Trustee Heintzelman.
Aye.
Trustee Jerch.
Aye.
Trustee Meierhoff.
Aye.
Trustee Shaul.
Aye.
Trustee Zaute.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Financials are approved.
I
Okay.
think should she put that trustee Hayes is absent,
He will get marked as absent at the top
Yeah.
of the,
but you don't do that for the roll call?
no.
I never did, no. I
All
just
right,
said
okay.
all I, but you start off with listing who's
Mhm.
present, so.
Okay.
And then, you know, as the important thing really in terms of keeping the minutes is that the information is recorded. So if somebody can basically interpret who is voting for it, you know, for and against, then it works. So in that case, if you can see who was there, the word all generally suffices because you can see who that was. So helpful cheats to efficient minutes. All right, so I am scrolling down here to get us to the checks. And okay, first check up I have to talk to you about is 14811, which is this check right here to HR Source.
Hey, Eric, do you have the, like, all the checks, or do we do that at the end after you give comments of the notable checks? You'll give me the range of checks.
Yes,
The
and
minutes.
if you look at the agenda page,
Okay,
not the document summary, but the one that comes after it, the agenda document, that has the check range listed on it as well, so that you
thank
can.
you.
We'll read them when we do the motion, and then you can pull from there for doing the minutes.
Got it.
Okay. So 14811, HR Source, the Management Association, which we have an annual membership with. This particular charge, though, is actually for the supplementary data that they collect as part of doing the annual North Shore Library Salary and Benefits Survey, which is the data that we use to do our staff salary analysis. So drawing attention to that one. And then the next one is the one right under it, the 14812, which is our institutional membership with the Library Association. We have some staff members that are members of the Illinois Library Association, myself included. The library is also an institutional member. Next check up, 14826. And this is with Envisionware. And Envisionware are the folks that provide us with our PC reservation and LPT1 software. What those do is they're the software that people log in to use the computers on. So they manage the public use of the computer system. And then the LPT1 is the print management software. And let's see, then check number 14845 is with Ravinia Plumbing. That is a backflow inspection. So annual peek at the sprinklers and making sure that those are working. That includes 2 sets of sprinklers, includes the ones in the building as well as the ones outside. And then the last check here from June that I'll draw attention to is from Tech Systems. This is an annual fire systems inspection. So every year Tech Systems comes out and they inspect all of the alarms and the central control system for it as well. So delighted on all counts that the sprinklers as well as the fire alarm system were found to be in good working order, as we want them to be. So moving on to the July checks, I get to the end here, then I'll see if anyone has any questions. First one I'll draw attention to here is 14856 with the Collie Elevator Company. They are our current elevator maintenance company that we are contracted with. We did make the decision when we renegotiated for a new contract to go with quarterly inspections rather than annual. The reason being that with the age of our elevator, which is now at 20 years, that it's advisable to have it checked out more frequently. So we are following that suggestion and having somebody out a bit more regularly. I would draw attention though as well that Lindy did a really good job as far as taking a look and seeing what was out there in terms of possible vendors. So the $230 from Collie quarterly, that breaks out to pretty close to what we were paying for a single annual inspection. So despite the greater frequency, it hasn't turned out to be a loss in funds, which is good. Okay, and I have one other that I was going to draw attention to here. The Henkel Electric, the exterior building improvements, that is the cost of yanking out one bollard and then putting a new one in to keep the back parking lot well lit. We have not received the bill yet for the work in the main parking lot. Bill had asked me at the last finance committee meeting to take a look and see which fiscal year the parking lot improvements were going to be billed to. It does look like, barring some work getting things cleaned up, such as when we had Canukin out to take down the trees that were in that peninsula, that otherwise, other than that, most of the work will be budgeted to this build to this fiscal year. So don't know how much the total there is going to be because we're riding with the village on this project. So what'll happen is that the village will get one big bill that will be itemized at the end of the project season. And then the village will let us know what our itemized portion is. And then we'll reimburse them for that. So I think that's, is there one more? Oh, yes. Just reminding myself here what the ones I was gonna draw attention to, because I knew I was forgetting one, and the one I was forgetting was this one, 14884, Peregrine, Stein, and Newman. Those are our attorneys. So this is a half-year payment. So for the last legal services for the last 6 months. In addition to any questions that we send them, they also provide additional service by providing legal updates to us. So anytime that the law changes in a way that impacts public libraries, they give us a legal interpretation of that, which they then send out to us and their other library customers, since libraries are one of their specialties. Most recent one that we received from them was interpretation and suggestion on some new changes to the whistleblower reporting laws that had instructed that you ought to select a whistleblower transparency person to have to receive whistleblower information. And their advice on that was pretty good, which was that if you're a small organization, you're probably way better off working with the county district attorney's office, which is going to be set up to basically fill in for anyone and everyone on this, because most weren't expected to appoint their own dedicated unless they were a really large organization.
Hey, Eric, what's an example of something we would ask their advice on? Don't disclose anything you don't want, it's confidential. So
Well,
I could
one,
jump in if you don't mind, Eric, that
we had one at the last
anytime
meeting. Yeah.
policy,
What?
anytime we create a new policy, we have to have it looked over.
Like
You
bylaw
know,
changes, you mean?
Sorry.
Like bylaw changes?
Well, not just bylaw changes. I mean, things like when we got the new laptops and had, had new regulations about how we were going to let people use them.
Okay.
Just any kind of policy changes. Am I right, Eric, that policy changes would be looked at by,
Yes,
that would be one example.
yeah, to make sure that they're in keeping with state law and that we're not,
Discriminating.
not doing anything that isn't strictly legal with our policies, and B, in case there's any legal verbiage that we really ought to have in there that we, just hadn't occurred to us.
Yeah, yesterday at our B&G meeting, we were talking about something we'll talk about later, which is a potential contract to be the manager for the building, part of the building renovation. And we were just talking about our interview process. We would ask them about their safety and how they manage working in the building. And then the conversation came up, can we ask them if their people have been vaccinated? And Eric said, well, it's something I got to find out about it. So that,
Yeah.
Eric's pretty
No,
good about
it's-
picking up on it. And,
Yeah, and that's a good example of something that's new territory, hiring during a pandemic here where we've got somebody coming in that's going to be a contract manager for us, that's going to be managing other, subcontractors and contractors that we're going to be bringing in. And, how do we approach, asking for any sureties that we might want as far as vaccination status or other things
Okay.
when they come in and work in the environment here.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
then the last one that I'll draw attention to is Ravinia Plumbing Heating. This is actually a sump pump inspection. So we had this in last couple of weeks here in August. We had a span, as I'm sure everyone will remember, that we had some heavy rain over a span of a couple days, and we had a alarm that went off with our sump pump. And the alarm reading basically said that the secondary sump pump had kicked in, you better check on the primary. So we had Ravinia out to take a look at that. We figured that the most likely reason for that is that the water had come down heavy enough over a couple days that the secondary had to kick in to help out the primary. But we've had at least once in the past where we had both pumps fail and some flooding that happened. So we always try to err on the side of care with that. So we had Ravinia out to make sure that things were solid, and they were. So on that note, I would open the floor to any questions about the checks that anyone might have.
Eric, I had a question about Granite. Are we still, because that was a replacement for Paytech or Access One, whatever they're calling themselves?
Access One, yes.
Yeah. So we've got 3 checks here. Are we still seeing savings? It seemed initially like the difference between Access One and Granite was pretty favorable.
They are way more all over the place in their initial billing than I would appreciate. Some of the bigger checks here are actually because we held off on paying them for a couple months because we had gone through the sign up, the setup procedure for the last bit of the phone service, which was getting changed over on the hard line in the elevator. And when the first bill with the elevator showed up, then that portion of the bill, now that it was included, was a lot more than we had been told it was going to be. So it took us a couple months to get that worked out. We didn't pay any bills in between because we didn't want to pay these. We didn't want to pay the totals that included amounts that we didn't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
but we got that sorted out. So we had one bill initially in June that was for a couple months. And then there was another month there where it was like somehow we ended up being overbilled one month, and we got a big credit, and that was the $50 one.
33. Yep.
You know, I'll be honest, I have no idea what's going on with the August one. I was looking at that this evening, getting ready for the meeting, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I need to follow up with Lindy on this again. The service and the machinery that they've given us has been really good, but for whatever reason, the billing portion of the operation is not exactly staying on top of things very well, which always befuddles me, because if you're a business, I generally assume you want to be paid. So
Stands to reason. However, you're on top of it.
right? We had our Baker and Taylor folks, this must have been 9-10 years ago, that all of a sudden out of the blue, they sent us a list of like years and years worth of like little shortfalls on payments that they said that we had made, like 10 years worth of stuff. And like, what are you guys, what are you guys doing? Anyway, any other questions on bills? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve, and I will provide you with the check numbers. And I will scroll up to the top here so that I can have those on the screen for you.
I've got them, Eric. I will move that checks for June, number 14,808 through 14,817. And then number 14,819 and 14,850, as well as the July monthly checks, 14,851 and 14,853 through 14,889 be approved as listed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And another vote involving finances, so we'll do the roll call vote. Trustee Graziano.
Aye.
Trustee Heintzelman.
Aye.
Trustee Jerch.
Aye.
Trustee Meierhoff.
Aye.
Trustee Shaul.
Aye.
Trustee Zaute.
Aye.
Motion carries. Checks are approved. Okay, and that will take us up to the committee reports. So we had 3 committees that met since the last board meeting in June. The first of those, one that's met multiple times, is the Building and Grounds Committee. So as noted, met yesterday on August the 16th and had also met on July the 22nd. So Janie, I believe that's you as the chair, is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, we met on July 22nd, and we discussed the hiring of a construction project manager. And we also did a short discussion of the draft of contracts and capital expenses, which we just discussed doing, but didn't get very far on that. And then we had a quick update on the panels that the Lake Bluff 125 committee was attaching to the side of the building, and noted that they are up. I hope you've all seen them. So that was the 25th meeting, where we did decide, as a matter of fact, to pursue the hiring of a construction manager as as Ingrid Anderson suggested that we do. So then during the interim between that meeting and this meeting, Eric drafted, it's not an RFP, it's an RFQ, requests for quotes. And we got 3 that came in. All 3 of them did actually come to the building, take a tour of the building, got an idea of the scope of the immediate project as well as the ongoing project. The immediate project being the renovation of the reading room. And they spoke either to Eric or Lindy or both, so they're all familiar with the space and what would be on their plate. We have set up interviews for next Monday, and I believe they're going to be via Zoom. Is that? the
That's
case,
correct.
Eric? So we will give ourselves an hour and a half. Hopefully we won't need more than an hour and a quarter of that per interview. And we also spent a good amount of time on the list of questions that we would ask those seeking the position. And both Kathy and Bonnie came up with some really valuable additions to the questions we had. So we've got a total of 15 questions that I believe you posted, Eric. Is that correct?
Yeah, I sent them out to the committee and as a follow-up so that everybody has the list.
Okay, so did you want to send them out to everybody on the everybody as a whole, or just the committee people?
Well, I mean, I can send them out to everybody on the board. I didn't know that they would
I
necessarily
don't know if
be
they're interested or not, but anyway, hopefully by the time we meet in September, these will take place on, did I write down the date? These will take place next Monday. So less than a week. So that means that by the time we meet in September, we will have a recommendation to give to the board as a whole for the hiring of a construction manager. And that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else to add to this. I don't know if Kathy or Bonnie have anything else to throw in, or you, Eric?
That was a good summary, Janie. Nothing to add.
That's it.
And next committee up would be Finance Committee. Bill's not with us this evening. I can jump in and summarize what we discussed if that works. I think Kathy, you were the other trustee that was present for that.
Yeah, I've got the minutes in front of me if you want me to just go over them real quick.
Sounds good.
And I want Melissa to tune into this as well because it affects just the finances going back and forth. So it's something you might be interested in. As Janie talked about, we're in the process of hiring a project manager. So aside from the mechanics of interview and selection, there's an issue of the eventual fee. The fee for a project manager is generally about 5 to 10% of the project cost. So we are anticipating a fee in the area of $2,500 to $7,000, with probably $3,000 to $5,000 being the most likely. So the discussion is, will the project manager be paid by the Library Foundation, which is a donor-based organization, or will it be paid by the Library General Fund, which is not budgeted in the current fiscal year? The advantages to the library paying the project manager is that the library takes a position of maintaining control of the project versus the foundation. Also, it gives the foundation the advantage of being able to tell potential donors that its donations are, really to meet brick and mortar versus the administrative background and so forth that has to happen. The committee agreed that it seemed like a good idea for the library, at least in this initial phase, to maintain the control and to pay the project manager. So the question was, how can we, where do the funds come from? We took a very close look at the current budget. As you all saw, the passport fees are going up from where they were in a great place 2 years ago, and then they dropped to nothing, and we're back up. So the passport fees that were budgeted 7,000, we expect to bring in about 10. The Department of Motor Vehicles has a program where the library will be able to issue certain fees and licenses and so forth. That's a little delayed, but we expect, we've got a budget item. We expect to bring in something before the end of this fiscal year. The utilities budget, because of the phone system, we're anticipating a savings of about 5,600 over the budget. And we always have a contingency budget, which we don't foresee tipping into, unless something drastic happens. So the conclusion of the discussion was that the numbers support allowing the project manager to be paid by the library with anticipated current revenues and contingency above the current budget. So there was a motion to recommend to the full board that first of all, the motion was passed by the finance committee to recommend to the board that at the conclusion of the interview process, if a product manager is recommended, that Eric have the authority to approve a contract between $2,000 to $5,000 with that project manager. That motion was made by Bill, seconded by myself, and we both approved. So that was the meeting. Do you guys have any questions, or Eric, anything you want to add to that?
No, only thing that I would add to it would be that my signing limit is at $5,000. So really, what it comes down to for a cost at that level is just whether it's something that the full board expects to see and take a look at for approval or not. So the recommendation then from the finance committee is really that, well, we want to get moving on this. So if we've got a recommendation, let's roll with it. And as long as the consensus with the full board is that makes sense, then that's, I think what we'll do.
Yeah. Any comments or thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea. I hadn't thought about the issue of the library being in control of the project manager versus the foundation being in control of the project manager, and looking at it in that light, I think it's a good idea for the library to do that, since it sounds as if it's not going to break the bank. So if no one else has any comments, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think it's a good idea.
Did you want to make a motion, Janie?
I certainly will. I move that the recommendation by the finance committee to pay the cost of a project manager be a cost to the library. And we should probably put a cap on that, should we not?
Not to exceed $5,000. That was the recommendation.
Okay, so the amount not to exceed $5,000.
Yeah, and I think we should say the project manager for the quiet reading room project.
Thank you. The project manager for the STRO quiet reading room project,
Yeah.
not to exceed $5,000. Be approved by the board.
You got that, Bonnie? Excellent.
Just waiting on a second.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, since it is a vote that concerns cash, we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Graziano,
Aye.
Trustee Heintzelman,
Aye.
Trustee Jerch,
Aye.
Trustee Meierhoff,
Aye.
Aye.
Trustee Zaute.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, and that takes us up to Long Range Plan Committee, which was a meeting all the way back at the end of June.
Yeah, Eric, you're gonna have to refresh my recollection on what we just discussed. I'm blanking.
I have my
was,
notes if you'd like.
Okay, that'd be helpful.
Go for it.
All right, so we met on the 24th of June. All committee members were in attendance, as well as Jillian Chapman, Martha O'Hara, and Eric, of course. We approved the minutes from the last meeting, which was September 10th of 2019. We selected a committee chair. As you can see, John was unanimously approved as the committee chair. And we laid out our 2021 goals. Number one was to set up a long range planning steering committee, or steering team, excuse me, that would include committee members, any other trustee representatives, members of the public, and then also any sort of aspiring / potential recruitment of trustees, people that we wanted to sort of bring into the fold and get more involved in the board or had expressed an interest. We also noted potentially this would be an opportunity to have some specific outreach to Tricia Brockett, who served as a interim committee member from November to April of this year. Any questions on the steering team? Okay. We also set a goal to evaluate and update the long-range strategic plan document. And we wanted to incorporate in that feedback from a survey that we had contemplated. So we want to update and revisit that long-range strategic plan document. We coordinate with staff members on conducting a patron satisfaction survey. What we wanted to do here was sort of assess how people are using the library, if that has changed markedly with the pandemic, and if they anticipate those behaviors persisting, or if there are other areas that they'd like the library to focus on as part of its long range planning. Our goal was to have, at the worst case, that the next library newsletter, which is September 1st of 2021, to incorporate website content and also to get into the village newsletter circulation with Glenn, that newsletter that we all receive on Fridays from the village. We wanted to, as I mentioned, talk about wants, needs, and utilization, kind of keep it very simple and high level, sort of a litmus test rather than a deep analysis of feedback from the public. And also have an open-ended question or opportunity to submit interest to participate in fundraising efforts in conjunction with the long-range planning committee. Just for some context, the last time we sent out a survey in the summer of 2000, our audience was about 22,000 people, 2,000 people. And we received about a 15% response rate. So we got about 300 responses, which is pretty good for a survey.
Hey, Matt?
Yes.
Sorry, what year was the last survey? Summer of?
2020.
2020.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. In terms of how to conduct, like the mechanics of the survey, the LibWizard or Library Wizard has a survey tool that our staff has experience with, so we're going to leverage that. Martha O'Hara generously volunteered to work with me on creating a survey outline, and I am way behind the eight ball on getting those survey questions to Martha. So I need to circle back with her this week on that. I'm just remiss on that. And that was the extent of our meeting. That was the summary of the meeting notes.
I think the group that you're going to put together to study long-range planning is a great idea to get other people involved. I like that a lot.
Thank you. I take no credit for that.
Hey, I've got a question, and it's really about that summer of 2020 survey. Could somebody provide me a copy of that? The tabulated results, not the survey, blank survey, but the findings?
I don't even
Martha-
recall a 2020 survey.
Well, that was a very short one that we did at the end of last summer. That was basically gauging specifically how people were comfortable using the library during COVID.
Oh, okay.
To help us measure the services that we were looking to provide. Is the curbside working for you? Are you comfortable coming back into the library? Would you do so if it was possible?
That's
It
actually now,
was very helpful.
as you're talking about the objective, it's starting to ring a bell. Thank you.
The
It was-
results are in a board packet. I can't remember which one, but that should be on the website.
Okay, thank you, Martha.
I can track that down and send it to you, Bonnie. If it's in a board packet, then I've got it here somewhere. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I would look to see if any members of the other committees has anything to add from the committees that did not meet.
I can share a couple quick updates from the technology committee. We are meeting a week from today. We did meet, and forgive me, Eric, is it CLC, our partner?
Oh, yes. It's CDI.
CDI, excuse me. We met with CDI, our technology partner from the library. We had three key stakeholders at CDI there on the call, as well as Eric, myself. And I don't recall who else may have been there. Eric.
Lindy, I think, joined us.
Lindy joined as well. And essentially, we just wanted to glean from them, because they work expressly with libraries. That's sort of their niche. If they could share with us any insights in terms of things other libraries have done recently that we might consider, given our size, we're looking for some comparative libraries in terms of either physical footprint or circulation or the population they serve, which isn't always easy. But they were very transparent in terms of, there have been some physical changes. I think it's Warren Newport and maybe one or two others who had undertaken some changes to their physical layout of their library, extended reading rooms or closing off reading rooms. But what we were really trying to suss out was, were there any substantive changes in terms of, in particular, like we've talked about in the last meeting, electronic materials, electronic databases. We asked and provided to them, and I don't think we've heard back from them yet, Eric. We gave them a list of the databases that we use currently, all the different, from MediaMall to Libby to what have you, all the different electronic databases that our patrons have access to. And they were going to kind of cross-reference that with what they know other libraries to be using to see if there were any gaps or things that we might consider in augmenting our electronic offerings. The one, I think, the sort of build out and programming that they noted that some of the libraries had undertaken, and certainly I think Deerfield and Bolingbrook, should anyone ever get there, are two examples. They built these 3D printer rooms and acquired substantial capital in terms of 3D printers and the technology that goes along with it. But their CDI's assessment was that, and anecdotally, when I've been to those libraries, I've seen the same. Those rooms are beautiful and quite alluring, but no one's in them. And so maybe we can look in the future to pick up some 3D printers on the bargain basement. Yeah, but that really was the biggest takeaway we had in terms of some areas of differentiation. We'll see if we have any insight around the library databases and if there's anything else we might consider there. We talked about simplifying that log on process and some of the materials associated with that. And then the last piece, Eliza and I met for maybe an hour and a half to go over our current web analytics software and its implementation. And essentially when people go to search.
Anna. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anna, I'm sorry.
I was like, I did.
I'm sorry, Eliza. Anna Pfeifels. I'm looking for names here. I'm trying to. Sorry. Anna and I sat down for a bit and went over, some of the key functionality, ways we might look to see what areas of content within the site are being accessed most regularly. Give us some insight into what sections of our site are appealing most to our patrons. The biggest hole we have right now in our ability to kind of track users on the site is when you go to search for a title, it bounces you out to another domain and gives you the results, and then you bounce back into our website, to our domain. So like blufflibrary.org. And that creates a break in the ability to track that user's path. And so I believe Anna was going to talk with that provider and help me here, Eric, because I don't remember the name, but to see if we had the ability to, there's a mechanical element called cross-domain tracking that would solve that problem, and whether they would be able to accommodate us in putting that piece of script on the site so that we could see our users as they bounce out to the results page essentially and back to our site.
That's probably Nikki Snoblin at Next Word. Is who she's planning to talk to on that. Nikki handles our web development.
Okay. So those were the brief updates, and since June from the tech committee, and we'll have a more complete update subsequent to next Tuesday.
Yeah, that observation about the 3D printers is it's quite valuable because we being librarians, teachers, educators, whomever, can get very excited about a grant opportunity and then be awarded a grant, but you want to make sure that the dollars of the materials are beneficial to our library or our whatever, and that our patrons are going to use it. Otherwise, you have a room with beautiful equipment and no one ever goes in there. So
yeah,
that is something to always keep in mind.
Mhm.
Okay, any other committee reports?
Oh, yes, could I talk 1 minute about, this is from the Community Engagement Committee. Thanks to everybody that was able to participate in the questionnaire for the website, introducing the trustees to the community. And then we're hoping to take photos as well. So I know some people have already been able to give me their dates. I'm going to send around another email with upcoming dates that Jillian can take photos. And if you could just let me know which dates work best for you, that'd be great. And then we were also hoping to get, let everyone know that September 25th is going to be the 125th celebration. So if you have that on your calendar, it'll be a really nice day. And I'm sure Jillian and Eric will talk more about it as it gets closer.
We're just hoping that COVID doesn't interrupt it at this point.
Fingers crossed.
That would be a heartbreaker to not have it go off this year. Really would. Yeah, I'll mention that again here as we get closer, and hopefully when we have the September board meeting, it'll be right before it, so we should have clarity by that point as to what things are going to look like. Okay. Unless we have other committee reports, I'm going to jump over to new business and keep us moving. Okay. Good reports. This is great information. Thank you. Non-resident card agreement with District 65 for school year 2021-2022. Bonnie, Jenny, I don't know, was at any of the other meetings, have we gone into the what and why of non-resident cards?
We have a little bit, and I know we also talked about how through the schools, cards are made available to all students, I think in the middle school and the elementary school. That's all my recollection of it.
The short and dirty version is that the districting of libraries in the state of Illinois leaves a lot of figurative and literal holes in coverage. So part of that is that there can be in our areas, sometimes big areas, that can opt out of service at any library at all. With the net result that you have these non-resident areas that then are attached through a truly Byzantine series of metrics to particular neighboring libraries. They are considered non-resident patrons, so they can get resident service if they come in and pay a tax equivalent fee each year. Otherwise, they don't have library access. So it's truly a complicated and inconvenient thing. And one of the biggest inconveniences for us is that because those Knollwood residents attend school with Lake Bluff residents at District 65, and then all go on together to attend together District 115, that has historically been an obstacle to really close collaboration with the school districts. Because anytime that we would talk about a service that we might be able to provide for their students, a lot of times it would come down to, well, but if they have to have a card for it, then we can't guarantee that all of our students will have cards. We know some of them won't. So, how can we make this work? And we were fortunate, I think 4 or 5 years ago now, that we dug into the challenge again and found a workaround, which was signing a non-resident agreement with the school districts to provide through the schools library service to those young persons, and just the young persons in those houses in unincorporated Lake Bluff. It's been a great good thing that's seen a lot of use and has really done a lot to tighten up collaboration between the library and the school district. So because they are intergovernmental agreements, they need to be renewed. So they're renewed on an annual basis. I think in another year or so here, that particularly the one with District 65, I think we'll probably start the conversation as far as maybe a multi-year renewal, just so that it's not on the agenda every year. District 115 is always a bit more of a conversation, but 65, I think that the last couple of years when we've done the renewal, everybody's pretty much in agreement that it's a great, good thing. There's not been much serious discussion of not continuing forward. So look potentially next year for a multi-year on that. I'll be talking to Dr. Lieli about that. But for this year, we have the annual renewal. And that is what we have under new business A. New business B is the agreement renewal with District 115. For both of these agreements to work, they have to be an exchange of services. So we provide service, library service to the students, and then we are compensated in return. we receive $1,000 each year from District 65 and $500 from District 115. And District 65 also provides us the opportunity to hold up to 3 programs each year in school facilities, which are much larger than ours. And that was a much better agreement, aspect of the agreement when COVID was not a thing and we were still doing in-person programming. But we'll get back around to doing that. We had a chance to hold some really nice programs over there 2 years back.
Eric, I have a question for you. I'm just curious, are there unincorporated areas in the Lake Forest Library District that I'm trying to think of what would be unincorporated Lake Forest?
I don't think there are. I believe that the way that the library districts ended up laid out, that they have somebody on all their borders without, because they've got Highland Park to their south and Highwood, and that's right on the border to border there. There isn't any unincorporated territory there. And I believe that, we're of course take up their northern border. And I think to the west is All Cook Memorial, which is a district library, so it doesn't need to follow municipal boundaries. They do have
It's
a
what kind of
Rollwood, too.
library? Did you say? I'm sorry.
A district library.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a couple different varieties, couple different flavors of library in the state of Illinois. The big difference is between village and municipal libraries, which have a few differences, but basically are the same critter. They follow the boundaries of the municipality and are in various ways part of the municipality. District libraries are not. Their function like, say, our park district does, where they have their own boundaries, their own elected board, and they're not really part of anything else. They're subject to any other elected bodies.
Interesting.
And Cook Memorial is our closest district. Warren Newport is also a district. Cook Memorial has, I think, something in the neighborhood of 60,000 people that are part of that library district. It's one of the biggest and busiest in the state, actually.
But probably the people who live in the Tawa and Oak Grove are part of that.
It stretches all the way over, actually, to 2 or 3 streets in Knollwood. So the far western part of Knollwood is actually part of Cook Memorial. So they come over pretty close. And they go pretty far south. They've got most of Vernon Hills, too. Anyway, so moving on then, the way the card agreement would work is that it would be approved here by the Board of Trustees, and then it also gets approved because it's an agreement between 2 governmental entities by the school board. So I've already talked to Dr. Lieli. She continues to be a great proponent of the library and the school and library working together. So she is all on board with getting this renewed, and it'll be on the September agenda for the school board. The District 115, I'm going to be sitting down and meeting with the new superintendent there sometime in the next week or so. And this will be the big thing on the agenda there that I hope to talk with them about. Go over it with them and get it on the agenda.
Why the disparity in fees? Why does the elementary school or the District 65 pay twice as much as the high school? Is that because Lake Forest Library gets most of their traffic?
Fewer grades.
Fewer grades, okay.
Yeah. It's just 4 grades where the agreement with District 65 is K through 8. And also we found that once the agreements went into effect, that the District 65 kids tend to be a lot more likely to use their cards, at least in the ways that we could measure them.
And you said this is like a pay in kind, like we exchange services, we give access. So have we used those that service in the past? Like you said, we had 3 events at the.
Yep. Not as much as I initially hoped we had. We were still kind of building up when COVID hit, but we've had a few bigger events over there. The one that always jumps to mind is that it's been our venue for the Phyllis Fox Awards. When we've done that awards ceremony, we had in the past done that big presentation over at the Park District, but it didn't really fit anymore. And that was after it had already, been determined that it really didn't fit here, and then it outgrew the Park District as well. So
another example was we had a program when Hamilton was just the rage in the city and everywhere else. We had a program that was totally over-attended downstairs in the Struth Room, kind of a musical presentation about Hamilton. And then we were able to go over to the middle school and have about 3 times as many people attend a repeat performance. So that was something we could fit right in very easily with when they were available and we were available and the program was. And so having that adaptability is really good.
Yeah. It is, yeah, it is nice. We had 75 or 80 people over there. And in the past, when we've had that kind of interest in a program, really our only recourse has been to see if we can schedule a second, schedule the program to happen again the next week and hope people will come back.
Yeah. So Eric, we want to go ahead with these agreements?
I strongly recommend that we do. And Anna's on vacation right now, otherwise I would have the usage statistics for you. I did have a peek at some of the general numbers mid-year, and they're pretty good. The agreement with District 65 also allowed us to connect our overdrive account with the school's overdrive account, which has been a good thing for the kids as well.
We should mention one more thing, and that is the children who are entitled to this card under the agreement. The card is for their use only. It is not for their family members. So a lot of our out of resident families are also families of these card users, so that whole families can come to the library and use their cards and stuff. But to assure anyone in the community objecting to this program, it does not extend to the families of school card holders.
And we police that very aggressively. There once upon a time, 20 years ago, the rules used to be a lot more lax. And unfortunately, there was a lot of abuse, not just at the library here, but at other libraries in the state, which was the big reason why the rules got tightened up. So knowing that had been the case, and in fact, we had a concerned patron that was very worried that might be the case again. We wanted to be very certain that we did not engender that. So we've been on the lookout, and doesn't seem to have turned into much of a problem. Happy to report. Okay, I would look for, unless there's any further discussion or questions, a motion to approve the agreement with District 65 for school year 21-22.
Motion to approve.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Are you okay, John?
Yeah, sorry, I got sniffles.
No worries. Okay, motion carries. That's approved. Janie, Kathy, I'll get that printed out for you to sign so that we can get signed copies and share those with our friends at the school district.
Eric, should I sign it since I'm no longer the acting secretary?
Oh, Bonnie, you will be coming over to sign.
Sure.
You-
And just to be clear, so Matt motion for District 65. Do we need a separate motion for District 115 now?
Yep, so we'll need a second motion now for District 115. They get approved separately because they're with two different organizations.
I so move.
And second.
Second,
I'll second. Go ahead, Matt.
all yours, Janie.
Okay,
I'm a big proponent of these, so I wanted to get on board.
As am I.
I heard Matt first and wrote a Z, so it's you,
Okay,
Matt.
great.
there we go. There we go.
And it'll be a
It is written.
ZA, a ZAU.
Thank you.
All right.
It's fine. It's
So-
an easy name.
Motion from Bonnie, second from Matt. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, good deal. I will get these printed and ready for signing from Kathy and Bonnie. Apparently some portion of my mind still thinks you're secretary, Janie. I'm sorry.
I saw that and said,
Yeah, I just completely cruised past that. But I'll get that fixed. Okay, so moving on to new business C, the proposed contract with Engberg Anderson for design of quiet reading room. The Building and Grounds Committee discussed this at their meeting yesterday, and after some good discussion on it, determined that in order to be comfortable recommending approval on the contract, really what was needed was a conversation with Joe Huberty and or Sean Kelly of Engberg Anderson, so that the contract could be fully understood as far as what was being covered and provided, wanting to be sure that we fully understood that, and in particular wanting to make sure that there wasn't going to be any overlap in terms of services with what we would be receiving from the project manager, since that would not be an effective use of money to have people contracted to do the same thing. So I have reached out to Joe and Sean over at Engberg Anderson, and we'll be setting up an opportunity for them sometime before Labor Day to meet with the Building and Grounds Committee and discuss that. And then I expect it to be on the agenda in September for approval. So there's no action on that one tonight. And I don't know what was going on with the PDF they sent me, but that PDF did not want to play nice with anything. Didn't want to be part of another PDF, didn't want its name changed.
I couldn't open it, Eric.
Yeah, I changed its name to send it out. I never occurred to me that that was going to, do anything to it. But as soon as it was in a different name, it refused to open. So who knows? Anyway, unless there's additional questions on that, I'll move on to a couple quick updates on the capital project. Okay, so the capital project, and Janie touched on a lot of what we've got that we're working on already. So I'll keep this as brief as I can. Talked about the RFQ, the bids being received. Candidates going to be interviewed next Monday. Because it's an RFQ, it works a little bit different in that we're looking for the qualifications and then we negotiate a contract with the preferred vendor and then go on to the next most preferred if we can agree on a contract, which is a pathway available for hiring professional services as opposed to the more typical bid process that the state of Illinois requires you to go through. I know that Melissa has been working on working really hard getting us going with our capital campaign as well. I'm not going to go into a lot of details on that, partly because there would be so many of them. But we've got a good list going, run through the donor search database of all the community residents and, looking at the folks that we really want to reach out to and talk to who might be interested and philanthropically minded. I know that we've got a new mini prospectus focused specifically on the Youth Services Department, which is the lion's share of what remains of the phase 1 project that's been drafted. I know Melissa's been working on creating some volunteer opportunities and putting together a campaign committee. So we're seeing some real progress. Melissa's entered working here at the library with a ton of enthusiasm and energy and a lot of good ideas. We're fortunate to have her on board. So Melissa, are you still with us? She's still with us here?
I'm here.
Is there anything that you would want to add as far as what you've been working on in a brief manner, keeping in mind that we're already getting later into the evening than I had budgeted us for time-wise?
No, thank you for that rave review. I'm happy to confirm all that you just said. We're moving along and I'm trying to keep the momentum going. I really would like to start outreach efforts in the next couple of weeks.
And Melissa, we would really love it if you could do that. So we're all behind you 100%, and you let us know how we can help you.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of capital campaign fatigue, and I know that everybody's anxious to start seeing some money come in. I am too, but I am fully committed to doing this as properly as possible.
Yeah.
So there are some things that we still need to set up so that when we do make these initial asks of the most major potential donors, that we come off as prepared and professional.
I think Melissa's doing everything right.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, hitching my wagon to your star is the best thing I ever did, John Heintzelman.
yeah,
Thank you for all of your help.
you're doing a good job.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, so that's some quick updates then on the building project. Jumping over then to the director's report. Couple quick statistics to add in, go with the report that was submitted. Looking at the numbers, a couple that I want to pull out. For July, the most recent month concluded, we had 4,333 visits that were recorded. That's versus 6,900 in 2019 in the same month. So that's obviously a noticeable difference. Flipping that around though, looking at the circulation, in 2019, we had 10,398 checkouts and almost exactly the same at 10,334 in 2021. So the usage numbers are almost identical, just a difference of 60 checkouts, which could have been made up by one very interested person. So looking at the numbers a little bit further, I think the numbers fall in with the trend that we've been seeing, which is that the adult circulation is down, and the digital circulation is up by almost exactly as much as the adult circulation is down. I think that seems to be a fairly straightforward trade-off there, which is not that surprising. There isn't as much available for young persons yet in terms of ebooks and e-audiobooks. And our juvenile circulation is up a little bit as well over the summer, which is good to see. So that is just a quick report since Anna's not with us on our ongoing trends that we're keeping an eye on in terms of how people are using the library. I had thought that perhaps here as we got into July and August that we might be looking at an opportunity where we could really be saying that we were moving past COVID and start getting a real glimpse as to whether this is going to be a permanent trend or whether there was going to be some additional fluctuation as COVID fully went away. Unfortunately, I would say that probably what we've seen over the last 2 weeks is that a certain percentage of our patrons are really they're retrenching a bit in terms of how they're viewing things, and that the usage is shifting a little bit back towards some folks being and I wish I could say that it was wrongly, but that the numbers are not great. Being more careful. And, that's, just kind of where that situation is at the moment. And we are excited to provide service opportunities, ways to use the library for those folks that want to take that step back and be a little bit more careful. So, and I will round out the director's report by
Eric, can I interrupt?
touching on that very briefly. Yes, Kathy.
As far as patron visiting, are we keeping track of use of the library in the evenings?
As a separate category?
Yeah, I mean, are we doing, because I know we used to always open until what, 6, now we're open until 9. Are we tracking the number of visits in the evenings at all?
I don't think we are presently. I know we have done so in the past, but I don't believe that our current people counter and when we're bringing in, pulling the numbers from it.
Does our checkout provide us times that we could see?
Yes,
Okay, so that's
certainly a breakout of when materials are being checked out would give us an idea. I can
just something to consider at some point in time to just see, in terms of usage and hours. And then also, will we be open on Sundays after Labor Day?
My anticipation has been yes.
All right.
It's
I mean,
part of the hours.
barring any COVID complication.
Yes.
That typically, okay.
Yeah. If we're able to, and it looks like we should be able to in terms of staffing, then they are part of the board approved hours. So kind of the last piece that we would get back to, since it wasn't really an option back in the spring.
Eric, just for clarification, the people counter counts whether any time of day, right? So that 4,000 visits is for all hours. You just don't have the ability, or we don't think we have the ability to segment it by 6 to 9 p.m.
Correct.
Okay. So Kathy, we're counting everyone who comes in the door. We just
Right.
can't tell you right now if they came at noon or
we
yeah.
increased our hours, and I'm trying to think. It's been so little tracking because it interfered with COVID times. But at some point in time, we added Tuesday, Wednesday evenings, and hours accordingly. And I just wondered, at any point, are we able to see, are those hours being used? Is there a demand? Just, in terms of, at some point, maybe they're very busy in the children's department, just in terms of staffing and budgeting. Yep. Who's coming and when? Are we able to figure that out?
I will take a look. In terms of looking at the value, I think there's a couple additional metrics too that we could pull to kind of round that out as a report looking at the evening hours. The number of attendees for our evening programs would be another one to take a look at. Yeah. To see how well those do. Yeah, I'll talk to Anna and pull that together.
And if we open up on Sundays, as I hope we do, will we close, whatever time we close, is that consistent with Saturday closure? Because that was always an issue from patrons, that everybody was confused about that.
Yep, it will be.
Good, great.
And then the last thing that I'll talk about in terms of the report is just following up on what I had written in terms of the COVID mitigation. So, as I am certain that everyone is aware and has heard, that continues to be a challenging subject, not just in libraries, and in fact, much more in other institutions, particularly schools. It is a heated subject right now, to say the least. So while on the one hand, we are strongly recommending that everyone wear a face mask at the library, we're also trying to do that while being respectful and avoiding confrontational situations whenever we can. So staff is, I would say at this point, well and truly getting a bit fatigued with just talking about masks to anyone. So I think the staff really deserves a lot of credit for, you know, the staying power and the all the hard work that they've put in, you know, and everything that's been done related to the mitigation that we've had to undertake over the last year. And sometimes having to have less than comfortable conversations with members of the community about it who have strong feelings and are completely within their rights to let us know when they have those feelings. So that concludes my director's report. If there is no motion to go into executive committee, I would then look for a motion to adjourn the meeting for the evening.
So move.
Second?
I assume you're adjourning rather than going to executive session, Janie?
I'm sorry. Yes, I am. I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 8:34 p.m.